witches, and welcome to a witch's guide to celebrating and working with the full moon. I really enjoyed chatting about the various lunar cycles last year, and I hope you guys did too. But this year I really want to kind of update and standardize all those videos and put them all into like a playlist. So I'll have one for full moons and one for new moons, so that way you can just have it as a quick reference guide. And I want to go a little bit more in depth. So I'm going to be using kind of like this year to go back and really update everything, and as well as like fill out my own grimoire with all of the information about the full moon. So it's like a really good way for me to get a refresher, and hopefully it'll be informative for you guys too. So thank you for sticking with me. Now today we are going to be discussing the full wolf moon in Cancer. So let's break it down, starting with the name. The full wolf moon is what we call the full moon in January, though it does have alternative names. So you might have heard it referred to as the ice moon, the quiet moon, the holiday moon, and a really wonderful source about alternative names and info about moon magic in general is this blog called The Peculiar Brunette. I use this as quick reference a lot, and she has a lot of really great resources on there. You can also check out the Farmer's Almanac and NASA to get more information about the moon and all of the information about space and all the science behind the moon, which I think is really interesting. But the Farmer's Almanac is a really great resource for witches who are unable to openly practice, and that's simply because the Farmer's Almanac doesn't draw as much suspicion as perhaps say a witchcraft book, but it does talk about the way that the earth changes, and it talks about the lunar cycle as well. So that is part of the Farmer's Almanac. Now, the Almanac tells us that it is thought that January's full moon is called the wolf moon because wolves were more likely to be heard howling at night around this time. So how can we connect spiritually with this full wolf moon that rises and graces our skies on January 6th in 2023 this year? Now, the wolf moon reminds us of the importance of community and of protection, not only of ourselves, but of one another, right? The full wolf moon is the perfect time to set your protections for the year ahead and connect with your loved ones. So being in the darkness of winter, this is also a really good time to turn inward and kind of reflect on the things that you wish to achieve in the year ahead. Though you don't really need to rush into, putting work into those dreams. Now is really like the time to brainstorm, to reflect on the past year, like I said. And you don't really need to rush into work until, the earth has warmed and spring has returned, right? The wolf moon also reminds you of the support you have in pursuing your dreams from your community, your friends, your family members, your loved ones. And at the very least, just know that you can always find, safety and comfort here in my online spaces. Another thing to consider when we're looking at how to work with this moon is the astrology, right? And I'm just going to touch on this simply because I am not super great at astrology. It's not my strength, but it is still very cool and can help us understand what energies are available for us to work with, right? And this full moon is always ruled by the sign that is opposite of the current sun sign. So because we are currently in Capricorn season, and happy birthday to all my Capricorns, the full wolf moon is going to be ruled by the sign of Cancer, which is where the sun will be in about 6 months. Now, the sign of Cancer is a cardinal water sign and is represented by the symbol of the crab. And Cancer is in fact ruled by the moon. So with this being ruled by the moon and being a water sign, this Cancer full moon can really help us connect with our emotions and our intuition. So I also like to consider like the animal of the crab. They have this kind of tough exterior and a soft interior, and that shell really does serve as protection. So I feel as though we're kind of like called to protect ourselves, perhaps setting those necessary boundaries that honor our softer parts, right? So with all that in mind, just be wary that you aren't becoming too guarded, right? And we're not walling ourselves up or retreating too far into our shells, because the full wolf moon does still call us back to find that community, right? Now, I'm sure that is all well and good, and I appreciate you listening to me rant on for about 20 minutes about all of that. But let's kind of like recap and go over some correspondences and talk about how you can actually celebrate this full moon. So first, let's review some of the spiritual intentions that are associated with the full wolf moon. Now, of course, we talked about protection and connection with your community, but this moon is also really about new beginnings and establishing new boundaries, gratitude for the wisdom from the past year, manifestation. In the beginning of the new year is always a good time to do this. You might want to focus on brainstorming and creativity if you have any big ideas or big projects that you want to tackle this year. Right now is really the time to indulge in your ideas, work on vision boards, and dream big while the weather is awful outside. This way, you can really have a good foundation and start your work in the spring when the weather warms up and you may be more inclined to do so, right? And then the final thing that I wanted to touch on is, of course, rest. Now, winter can be really tough, and I always want to remind people that rest is a valid option. And you are never ever obligated to practice if you aren't feeling up to it. So just moving right along, let's talk about some of the colors associated with this moon. Now, colors and color magic is great for novice practitioners or practitioners who may not be able to be open with their practices so much, as you can kind of wear these colors to honor these lunations or holidays, what have you. But this is also really great. Color correspondences are great for decor, altar cloths, etc. Now, I tend to go out into nature and look in the world around me to derive these colors, so that's kind of where it comes from. And when I go out into nature around this time of year, I notice black, white, silver for the moon, dark green, blue, and brown in the world around me. So those are the colors that I am going to be focusing on during this full wolf moon, and those are the colors that I feel like are generally accepted that are associated with this full wolf moon. But again, I encourage you to look into the natural world around you. Next, let's chat about some symbols that you can decorate your altar. Now, obviously wolves is going to be kind of the most on the nose one, but any sort of lunar imagery like the triple moon symbol, or I have like a moonlight that I really like to use, crabs or oceanic imagery, if that is something you are called to, maybe some shells, water, snow, and light for both creative inspiration and also the heat of the returning sun. And for all of my wonderful spellcrafters, green witches, alchemists, etc., let's chat about some herbs and crystals that you can use. Now, in general, we want to select herbs that are associated with our spiritual correspondences. So in the case of the full wolf moon, we're talking protection, maybe communication, cleansing, or new beginnings, and creativity perhaps. Though again, full moons are a great time to do any sort of spell work. So if you're really feeling called to do a working that is not in alignment with these, that is a-okay. And I don't want people to feel like, they can't connect with their spirituality or practice a certain way. Now, we can also use herbs that are ruled by the same element and planet as the house that this moon falls in, right? So in the case of the full wolf moon in Cancer, consider using herbs associated with the element of water or ruled by the moon. So some examples would be aloe, apple, lemon balm, blackberry, chamomile, angelica, basil, cactus, clove, frankincense, garlic, thistle, rosemary, which is my fave, garden sage, pine, gardenia, eucalyptus, poppy, willow, or wintergreen. Anyhow, that is just a selection of herbs that you can use for your practice, and there are tons more. I really recommend reading Scott Cunningham's Encyclopedia of Magical Herbs if you are interested in learning more about all of the amazing herbs that are out there. And as for crystals, we'll use similar logic, matching up stones that correspond with the colors of this moon, as well as the spiritual intentions for this moon. So for the full wolf moon, I would consider stones such as obsidian, onyx, snowflake obsidian, quartz, selenite, malachite, hematite, and of course, moonstone. Now, finally, let's apply all of these tools to the real world with some practical magic and spell work, right? Now, the number one piece of spell work that I really recommend doing around this time of year in general, but especially during the full wolf moon, is warding and protecting your home and sacred space. Especially in the darkness of winter, that is something that is just so important. You might also want to expend some energy enchanting protective jewelry to protect you when you are on the go, or creating protective sigils for yourself to put in, your car, your wallet, your purse, stuff like that. You might want to engage in some introspection and meditation, maybe while burning a loose incense you've made with some of the herbs we talked about earlier, or holding on to one of the corresponding crystals. You might want to engage with some journaling and vision board making for the year ahead, which is something that I really love. So, check me out on Pinterest. No. Next, and this kind of goes hand in hand with protective magic, I really encourage you to clean, cleanse, and reset your space for the new year if you haven't already. Now is a great time to declutter and just get rid of anything that no longer serves you. So I really encourage you to do so. You might want to have just a fun day with your loved ones. Again, this is all about connection with your community, your friends, your family members, however you see fit. And even though it is cold out, I personally, like, for myself, want to really devote a little bit more time this year to being outside and connecting back with the planet. So even if all you do during the full moon, which again is January 6th, is go outside to just connect with the planet, that is beautiful as well. And finally, of course, we have rest and recuperate. The holidays are absolutely always hectic, and I totally get it. If you're feeling a little bit stressed out, no worries. Rest is a super valid option, and especially for this moon in the winter time, like definitely. So that is my little guide to celebrating the full wolf moon in Cancer. Thank you so much for joining me, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.